Some cars in your life leave a lasting impression. And 10 years ago, I put on this hat and had the ride of a lifetime. I was invited to drive the car that would literally change my life forever. This is James, the owner of Jasmine, and we go way back.
Jasmine was really one of like the very first cars that I built ground up from absolutely like 100% OEM. Like obviously I wanted an Evo since I knew what they were, right? 2003, I saw one, I wanted one.
In 2012, I went to my first ever Cars and Coffee where I met a friend named Brandon. He said, hey, after this, you wanna grab breakfast? And we ended up going to where I thought was Brandon's house, but it wasn't. We were just hanging out in some random dude's house. But Brandon had actually been dog sitting and house sitting for somebody named James, who was deployed overseas for the military. And then Brandon said, you wanna see something really cool? And he opened the garage door and there it was.
You remember Jasmine was completely different body kits all matched together. C-West front bumper. For a while I had Ings +1 side skirts, had a charge speed rear bumper, and so the mirrors that I wanted, the hood that I wanted, I wanted to make it look very, very different from every other Evo that you see. Then started doing the engine, which multiple engines and different turbo kits, different power levels like that. That was just a car that I made exactly how I wanted without other influence from anywhere else.
I had never seen an Evo like this. It was just this sinister looking black Evo sitting in the garage waiting for its owner to come back. And Brandon nonchalantly goes, yeah, rumor has it, it makes over 800 horsepower. And back in 2012, hearing 800 horsepower out of any car was really impressive. And my brain just starts going crazy like, oh, that'd be so cool if I'm able to film cars like that someday.
Craigslist was awesome at the time. However, when you're deployed and you're bored, all I was thinking about is Jasmine's at home, and I would just find parts on Craigslist, you know, used parts. My orbital double din, which were super rare back in the day, ordered it, had it shipped to my buddy's house, and he would like go and drop it off at the storage unit where Jasmine was. So yeah, I just would think about, all right, what do I want to do with Jasmine when I get back? So yeah, I spent a lot of money while gone on random parts.
Jasmine would go on to become kind of a local legend. It was the black Evo that you never saw and you never wanted to race if you actually ran into it. It would just be too much for you.
After going out a couple times, I kept hearing from random people that there was this mysterious black Evo. Again, at the time it was 600 horsepower. Back then in that year, there wasn't much on the road that can handle a 600 horsepower all-wheel drive beast of a car. I started hearing things, and I would race a couple people here and there. And that's why on one of my deployments, the only reason I went higher horsepower than 600 was because I raced a couple high horsepower Mustangs in Virginia Beach. And while I was deployed and the car was in storage, I heard through the grapevine that these Mustangs were building their cars so that when I came back that they would be able to race me and beat me. So that's when my idea was on deployment, start going higher horsepower.
What's funny is that I ended up dog sitting for James. So I started dog and house sitting James's house while he was on deployment, and he didn't even know me. He didn't even meet me yet. And it was just some random guy, you know, in his house.
First time David and I really talked was I was deployed. I got to see a couple of his videos. Of course, a lot of my friends were his friends in Virginia Beach. Reached out to him and said, hey, like you can film it. At that time, it was about 600 horsepower. It was on a stock frame turbo, an FP Black. It was on E85. It was absolutely a blast. But once I came back from deployment, the car went down to Force Fed Performance down in North Carolina. They built it, ended up making over 800. So the next time that David and I were actually able to to link up and actually film it, it was much higher horsepower.
context, I had never driven anything over 500 horsepower at the time. But then the day came, James was back in town, and he goes, hey man, it's now or never. Before this car breaks, it's now or never. I was living with my parents at the time to try and make this YouTube thing work, and I drove the 2 hours all the way back to Virginia Beach to just drive this car.
David decided to film on this island in the middle of the bay, so the wind chill was like crazy. It was already less than 30 degrees, I believe. Wind chill. He ended up picking a really pretty spot. However, it created this wind vortex inside that just dropped the temperature by another 15 degrees.
Circle around there.
Oh no! Stop the shoots! Stop the shoots!
Makeup correction!
So me and a bunch of my friends that were all there, we were jumping in the cars with the heat on and pointing and laughing at David because he was outside filming the car.
Hey Nate, guess what? I love you, but shut up!
We're coming through! You're coming through!
I remember strapping into Jasmine my very first time and going, oh my God, this is happening. Believe it or not, this was my first time driving an Evo 8, ever. I've never driven a stock one. The first pull I did will never leave my memory. It was through a tree tunnel and it was 50% throttle, and I just remember getting that first sense of warp speed in a car I have ever experienced.
As soon as David jumped in the vehicle and he was getting a feel for it, feeling out the clutch, again, I've never been in the passenger seat of that car at that point in time, so this was news to me. We were going through this small road, and it's a very small road. On the left-hand side, it's kind of like on a hill, so there's kind of like wood here, and then there's just a tunnel of trees. And the very first time he got on it, I wasn't ready. I didn't know he was actually going to throttle it right away. Throttled it. He says 50%. Felt like a whole lot more than 50% to me, because that car leaped.
I just remember after that first pull seeing James's eyes bulge out of his head. It made me confident that I was going to be able to control this car, even being a novice driving high horsepower. Just a little roll on in second gear, and that's a little bit of ice. Don't go across that, and go! Wow. Wow. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so we get out of the trees. We're on this nice like farmland road, pretty straight, and there's snow around us, as you can see in the video. There's ice patches on the road, and this ATV, this kid guy on an ATV ends up pulling on the road behind us. David looks at me and goes, huh, ATV, and then just launches this thing.
Oh, ATV behind us. I got to.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the video where in the back the tree moves. I've watched that video a bunch of times and it just doesn't do it justice. You can see that tree moving, you can see the car just pulling every direction.
And that was awesome. Yep, fast car driven. Yep. The car had no boost by gear, had almost 50 pounds of boost, and would crab walk and dance all the way across this skinny road. And it was so cold outside, there's practically no traction.
Experiencing this together, which at the time, like, we talked, we weren't close friends. That experience together was just so much fun. The adrenaline that we both went through together.
That was exhausting.
Ended up really changing the course of our friendship. We've been friends for, 10 years now. After that, we started going skateboarding and riding BMX at the skate parks whenever we had free time.
Driving Jasmine my first time felt like I had driven an 8-hour road trip. The amount of adrenaline and energy and focus it took it was exhausting. And we both got out of the car, and I remember we go all the way back to James's house and we just did nothing the rest of the day. I also filmed the glamour shots for another Evo called Nessa, which was an Evo 10 making like 560 horsepower. And the next day I drove Nessa as well, so shout out to Sean. But driving Nessa was like a cakewalk in comparison to Jasmine because it made like 560 wheel and it was just a fun, more casual time. That car also helped my career exponentially, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without Sean as well. It's fast. A few months after the review video, James came up to Richmond, Virginia and did a test and tune day at the track and broke fourth gear, and he was so disappointed. He ended up just unloading his car in a Walmart parking lot and just saying, "Who wants to race?"
Tim was testing his Evo 10 at the drag strip. I was testing my car at the drag strip. I ended up breaking fourth gear in my transmission, completely gone. Put the car back in the trailer. We were close to David, so we went and saw him. And that night he said, hey, he's meeting up. A little car get together, some street racing and stuff. So in the Walmart parking lot where I had to park my trailer, we ended up lowering down, rolling out Jasmine with customers and stuff coming over to watch. And then without fourth gear, we drove over to the location and ended up racing for 2 hours, all without fourth gear. So David ended up helping me move to Florida from Virginia, and I needed someone to be able to help drive down. So I reached out to David and said, hey, would you mind driving, 12 hours? We were unloading Jasmine, as soon as she came off the trailer, I looked at David, I was like, let's go drive her. And not even 5 minutes from the house, wasn't even driving fast, nothing crazy whatsoever, but a cop ended up like pulling next to us, not pulling us over, but pulled up next to us, made us roll down our windows, and he goes, hey, I know it's hot, but cool it down. And so we immediately just drove with our tail between our legs back to the house, but ended up showing us how cool the Tampa cops were.
So we ended up going to FL2K the next year, and a ton of people online were talking a bunch of smack about Jasmine. Which just made me laugh because James had just changed it to a gnarlier setup, which made the car even faster.
I really don't remember much about FL2K. I remember we were prepping my no-lift shift and getting that dialed in. In fact, actually on David's channel, there is a very short video of us just doing a night run with 4 people in the car, no-lift shifting, causing havoc. Ended up going out for FL2K after hours and had a whole bunch of people talking smack on Jasmine, but no one would end up racing her, so we ended up, I don't think we even did one race that night. We didn't do one race that night. And so we went home, and that was kind of boring.
I will say though, that the forward-facing setup that actually made the car faster actually, in some weird way, took away from Jasmine's fear factor and what made it kind of fun. And for the first time in my life ever, I said to myself, wait, did I like a car when it was sorted worse? Because Jasmine had this violence that no other Evo I'd ever felt had, because he had a smaller turbo that was pushed to its absolute limit.
Jasmine ended up lifting ahead, and so we decided go bigger cams. If we went bigger cams, go bigger turbo. If I was going a bigger turbo, why not go forward facing? Then we started doing the forward facing, which required half a radiator. Well, I went to 8 injectors, forward facing, bigger turbo, O-ringed head, all kinds of different changes. And that's when Jasmine went from the 800 horsepower to the 1,000 horsepower. We also threw in boost by speed and a lot of other like ECU changes. So instead of going from 800 horsepower completely raw, or 869 horsepower completely raw Jasmine, to a over 1,000 horsepower well set up Jasmine.
85 life. Here we go. Okay.
And it was a completely different car in the sense of that terrifyingness that you watch in David's first review video. If you notice in the second review video, there isn't a lot of craziness like the first one. It's because it was just well set up. The car was faster than it was, but it was just so much more well put together that it just ended up honestly losing kind of a little place in my heart, because Jasmine was crazy before and now she's just fast.
But then finally, James decided to let Jasmine go. I mean, guys, this car was a money pit. Going through motors, going through transmissions, going through all this stuff, it just was so much. And James wanted to focus on new projects ahead, which I completely understand.
Yeah, so after building Jasmine for over 10 years, she did everything that I wanted it to. However, Jasmine's kept having issues here and there. She was working absolutely great, break a transmission, fix the transmission, something else would happen. And it just got to a point where I had a lot of stuff going on with life, ended up having to sell her. Ended up selling her to this great guy named Cody. He's taking amazing care of her. We are still in contact, still friends. Jasmine is doing absolutely great, living a quiet life, retired up in Ohio, I believe. But let Jasmine go, because I kind of was just kind of done with 4 cylinders. I was really focusing on the S15. I don't know why I put into the 370, because that's usually where she is. Started focusing on the S15, got that car done because it was sitting for over 6 years, so I wanted to finish that up. Once that car got done, started looking into other things, ended up getting this thing, which has been a blast. And so I miss Jasmine a whole lot. That car will always have a really big piece of me with her. However, it was a good thing to kind of be done with 4 cylinders for a while.
I've been on YouTube for over a decade now, and it wouldn't have happened without James and the faith he had in me to drive his obnoxiously fast car, Jasmine. And I don't really think there's gonna be a car in my life that'll ever affect my life the same way again, especially a car that's not my own. Guys, what car affected your life in any way, big or small? Put it down in the comment section below. I appreciate every single one of you guys for watching this video. It's very special to me, especially after the 10-year anniversary. And thank you so much. Hit that like button. It really helps me out in the YouTube algorithm. And I will see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.